once again, I'm Ken Scott, conducting a Fortis author interview. Not a guy connected to Fortis, but a guy that him and I went back quite a while. I'm talking to Kevin Lane. Kevin, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine, thank you, Ken.
Good man. And you've got your little book there up in the background, Fitted Up and Fighting Back, and that's what predominantly I want to talk about today is the book, not so much your life in the past, or I will ask you what you're doing in the future, because I know you're doing very, very well. The first thing I want to say, though, Kevin, is that, as I say, I think I first met you, how many years ago?
2011, around
really?
about. Something like that.
11 years ago. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. The one thing, obviously, just to tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit, you spent 20 years inside in prison for a murder that, as the book suggests, you were fitted up. You didn't do the crime, but you still spent 20 years in prison. And before I go into the book and ask, because I know all about the book, I've read it on many occasions. I think it's fantastic. But one thing I did want to say, Kevin, I've been watching a few of your interviews over the last year or two since you came out of prison. Your mental health situation is commendable. You've come out of there, and obviously it's going to have a massive effect on your life. But you've come out there, and you're just like one of the lads on the street. I mean, how the hell do you get your head round being 20 years inside for a crime you didn't commit?
I was told very early into my sentence, get on with it, knuckle down. This is your life now. You need to make it a life, because this isn't a dress rehearsal. So I thought it makes a lot of sense in that I'm living in here now. What do? Do I roll over? That's not in me. I will never roll over. Start pushing the daisies up. I trained. I used to have a drink. I like to drink in prison. I had a working relationship with the staff. They said, Lane drinks, manage him. I'm doing a life sentence. Never know when I'm going home. So it works well. I trained hard, drank, danced and sang and kept positive.
Yeah, I mean, again, for a guy that's never been inside, was it easy enough to get a hold of a little bit of alcohol?
No, they don't like booze because a lot of people get violent on it. Mm-hmm. I never did. So, and like I said, I had a working relationship with him in that. I didn't bother staff, and staff left me alone, and I was good for the wing. So it's bloody good anyway. It gets you drunk and it takes you out of those places.
Yeah, there's a certain magic in a little bit of alcohol, as you know. I like to drink myself. And I can imagine being pushed into an environment like that, and which clearly is a very violent environment at the time you were in there. Jesus, you need something to take you to a different level occasionally. I mean, it is understandable, And obviously, I came to see you, and we're just talking about the book at that particular point. I was amazed when I came to see you in Hull, and I was amazed when, I said, so how many words have you written, Kevin? And you'd written the whole bloody book, hadn't you? That was amazing. I thought I was coming to write a little bit of a book and that sort of thing. It was all there and it was all done. And I'll always remember you managed to get me emailed the first draft of your book, and I read it in one sitting, and there was some real jaw-dropping moments in there, and as a reader and as a fine upstanding member of society, I'm thinking to myself, how's this guy in here? There was so many things that stuck out like a sore thumb. The car, for argument's sake. The car that was allegedly used in getting just to tell people a little bit about it, you were convicted for a hit on a guy called Bob McGill. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and they originally charged two guys, if I remember. Again, my memory's not bad. Roger Vincent and Smith.
Yeah.
What was Smith's first name? David Smith, and they were the original guys actually questioned as regards Bob McGill's murder. and the car that was allegedly used to take the perpetrators to the scene of the crime, the police said that they'd found your prints on it, and you said, well, openly honest about that, and say, yeah, because I'd used it a few weeks earlier, and even your son's fingerprints was in the car, and you'd used them to take your son to school or something like that.
Yeah.
And when I read the book, that was like, it was circumstantial evidence, and that was like the only thing that had on you, and yet you admitted that you took your boy to school in it. And I could not believe, as I read your book, that it eventually ended up in a 20-year sentence for the flimsiest of evidence. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but as you know, the book sets out a number of significant factors in that it takes you on a journey from start to finish, and it sets out the case from start to finish, what happened then, what we know now, what we didn't know then, but we know now. And the book has never been blacklisted. It's never had a court order from the police. Everything in that book is obtained from documentation that has been disclosed to me from the criminal justice system. And it is powerful, and it shows without a doubt that the police have set me up. They've withheld material in relation to the car. They tried to change the identity of the car that I was using by taking covers off of the back shelf and stuff like that. They had the car completely dismantled. So when the car was viewed, you couldn't see it in its original format. And its original format showed that it wasn't the car that was identified at the scene of the murder. So they stripped the car down to its bare shell. And the book sets all of this out in that they also tried to stop us seeing the vehicle. And I think we got to see the car a few days before the trial, in fact, after the trial. So evidence that we should have had wasn't given to us. Vincent and Smith, the original suspects, working with a corrupt police officer who was a handler, who subsequently went to prison for 4 years for stealing £160,000.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was another jaw-dropping moment when I read the book, in that Chris Spackman was the DI, was he Detective Inspector?
Detective Inspector.
And you said for years that man was bent, and that he'd fitted you up, and he'd falsified evidence, and he'd planted evidence, and this, that, and the other. And then at a particular point in your prison sentence, that man, that copper, was convicted of stealing 160 grand and sentenced to 3 or 4 years in prison. So everything you said at that point about that copper was 100% correct, and yet you still didn't get out. What?
Well, we've had police officers come forward to Sally Chitzel, a former BBC journalist. A number of police officers have come forward and said Kevin Lane's been fitted up, etc., etc. I found that very difficult, in that police officers are coming forward, journalists are coming forward. This information is being put forward to the relevant authorities, and they're just stonewalling me. For instance, to give you a very quick insight, the Criminal Cases Review Commission is a government body set up to ease the overload of the appeals to the Court of Appeal. So they filter the evidence, they filter the cases and say yes to some, no to others, or they don't say yes to many actually, but there we go. In the Criminal Cases Review Commission, they have 14 commissioners. One of those commissioners was the Chief Constable of Police of Hertfordshire at the time of my arrest. Now he's working in the Criminal Cases Review Commission. Also, my prosecutor, Kalisher, he set up a foundation called the Kalisher Trust to pay for trainee barristers to do their training. Where do you think they did a lot of their training? The CCRC. Now, I found this out, and I also wrote to the CCRC, and I asked them if any staff within the CCRC knew me or knew police officers involved in the case. They wrote back and said, yes, that is inevitable, but it wouldn't cause the impartial observer to form a view of bias. Well, what do you think?
I know. Now, again, reading the book as I did many years ago, my kind of heart and mind went into your prison cell, and I was very much with you, but trying to imagine that there was so much evidence there to say that you were an innocent man. And journalists were coming forward, and I believe even policemen were speaking to journalists saying Kevin Lane's innocent, he's been fitted up, and yet you're still languishing there in prison. I mean, that must have been, I can't imagine what it must have been like, Kevin. It must have been so frustrating, night after night, week after week, month after month, year after year. You're still there in the cell. And literally, it seems every man in the street knows that you're an innocent man, and yet you're still there. How do you cope with that, Kevin?
Very difficult, because I've had governors come up to me. A governor, I won't mention his name, so it's a common knowledge, Kevin, in the area, you're innocent. Everybody knows you're innocent. Everybody knows you did it. So I found it extremely frustrating and difficult. You think, well, what have I got to do? But then you realise the criminal justice system is corrupt to the core. That's good, obviously, but they will never say they're sorry. Very rarely will they say they're sorry for miscarriages of justice, or we've made a mistake, or, you know, they flower it up. I realised at the time how deep of a hole I was in. But I thought, I will keep throwing punches. I'll throw 900 punches, 99 to miss, one will land. That one that lands is the one I want. And that's how it went. And eventually, punches started landing. Some documentation came to light where I've been pressing for years. And the prison governor of the prison director of the prison system came to see me, told me he was downgrading me, and I was chucked out of the prison service at a great pace of knots, from ACAT right the way through to D and gone. And then my appeal came up once I was released. So it was very frustrating, but I used to deal with it by writing letters, and I felt that was my way of fighting back, and eventually I will get somewhere.
Yeah. Now that's interesting. And I remember sitting with you in Hull prison, and I said, "So how many letters have you written, Kevin? And how many have you written?"
I've written over 10,000.
Oh my God! I mean, as a writer, as an author, mate, that's commendable. That is great. But as you said, that was your way of coping with it.
Yeah, and training, and a beast in myself in the gym. I was gym orderly for 12 years. So I'd run circuits for people and train with people. But that's it's a two-pronged attack where you're looking after yourself mentally and physically, but you're getting back to your cell where you're shattered. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have a TV. So all I used to do was write and read and type and investigate and send letters out to everybody. Whilst you're tired, knowing you've got to get back up in the morning at 6 o'clock to get your breakfast in you, to get a bit more work done, to get out the door at 8 when it's open, or 8:15, go to work. So it becomes routine.
Routine, yeah.
Train, work for years and years and years. But also the support that I had from people. I knew that people knew I was innocent, and I could see the support growing. And that must never be forgotten, because without the support of people, friends and family, a lot of people would feel helpless and just throw the towel in.
Yeah. It's as I say, that's what kept you going, your friends and family, because your two lads, I met your two lads once in London, Aaron and Tommy, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Now, they were just little lads when you were taken away, wasn't it?
Yeah, 5 and 7.
My God. And I think because of the category you were in, you didn't kind of want them to put them through the trauma of seeing you in there, and you didn't see them for a number of years, did you?
9 years. I was triple category A. Some people don't think that exists, but it does exist. And that's been confirmed on TV, on Channel 5, Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison I've appeared on that. And you had prison officers saying Kevin was triple category A. I've got letters from the Home Office when I was made triple category A. You don't come into contact with anybody, permanently closed visits. So you do feel like the Holston Pills advert. All the sugar turns to alcohol, Nobby. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, I remember it. But because you was classed as an exceptional risk prisoner, wasn't you?
Triple category A.
Yeah, and I think you were the only guy in England at that particular point. I mean, everything about the book, and I'm going back to the book as well, the little things, not a little thing, but I remember one point in the book, and you said that you were being taken to court, and you had like 6 or 7 police cars, big flashy blue lights, a helicopter over the court and that. And I think you said in the book, who the fuck, who's coming in here? This must be a dangerous man. And it was actually you.
Yeah.
You know, now immediately that's going to sway jury, isn't it?
It does, but the jury, they never really know who's in that van up until they think, is it him, is it not him? There's a number of courts that are high profile here. They can't actually see in the van, apart from the police telling them that's Kevin Lane. So what do? They ran into the court with guns whilst the trial was going on. That tells the jury, as well as the armed guards, 24-hour armed guards, that confirms it anyway, really, doesn't it? That's me in that van. And the judge had armed guards, and there was armed police all the way down the corridor where they came out of court and walked to their jury room. So they've had to be completely bonkers if they didn't realise it was for me. But yes, they still go over the top to enforce that fear. Running into court with the guns, I thought, what is going on here? Of course, the jury absolutely shit themselves. But they do that in a number of high-profile cases. They did it in Dave Gunn and Colin Gunn's case from Nottingham. They run into the court with their guns. If you're high risk, they want to let the jury know that's you. Or triple A, should I say, exceptional risk. And
in many respects, that's quite unfair, because it's almost you're planting a seed in the jury's mind before they've heard a shred of evidence.
What chance do you stand? When you think about it, Ken, if you had armed guards for 21 days, and they come and go, they're with you for a week, then they're off, and someone's on at the night, you take them out cups of tea. You might make them a sandwich, depending on what kind of person you are. And then, of course, it goes back the other way. Well, he's a right bad bastard, this one. Oh, if you knew what he'd done, the things he's got away with. And then the jury. And I also believe I had a police officer as the foreman on my jury. And I just didn't think I stood a chance. So it's heavily weighed against you. They can control the evidence that you use to defend yourself when you get it, if you get it. I mean, I got a statement in 2007, 12 years after I'd been convicted, from the fella that says he was given a car by Roger Vincent and David Smith. His name was Leonard Bennett. He said they gave me the car and asked me to burn it. The police withheld his statement, got him to make a new statement and changed it, blaming someone else. If I'd have had that for trial, I wouldn't be sitting here now, because he'd have been turning around and saying, these two people gave me the car. The original suspects were going around bragging that they committed the murder, hence why they got arrested by the police and other exceptional circumstances. I'd have been a free man years ago. Yeah. But as we say, life shuffles the cards, and we have to play with the best hand we've got.
Yeah, well, you've certainly done that, mate. And as I say, each chapter you read of the book is almost each chapter has a jaw-dropping moment, and there's twists and there's plots. It's almost as if you didn't know it's fiction. It would make a great movie, you know, and yet it's all 100% true.
You've always said that, Ken. You've always said they make a great movie. You wrote a screenplay, you wrote a film about it as well, didn't you? There's a lot of people who say the same. It's 4.9 on Amazon, which must say something about it out of 5. Yeah. It had Book of the Year of 100,000 Book Club last year. And the reviews, and you know, so yes, I'm really pleased with it. It sets the case out clearly.
It certainly does. Now, having said all that, and I do agree, it sets the case out. It's black and white to me. It really is black and white. And anybody that reads it, and I've seen your comments on Amazon, I've seen the comments under the reviews, that total strangers have read your book and the same reaction as me. What? Why? How has this guy spent 20 years you were in? Was it 20 years inside? And it's quite amazing. Now, what's also amazing for me is that putting myself in your shoes, Kevin, if I came out, and I'm out of prison now, and I know for a fact you're building a great life for yourself. You've always been the hardest grafter that I think I've ever seen. And, you know, you're doing well and you've got projects on the go. You're very much an entrepreneur. And for me, I think if I was in your shoes, I would be saying, right, fuck it, let's forget all about what I've left behind. Yes, they've took away 20 years of my life, but let's put it behind me and let's move on, which you're certainly moving on. But what's impressed me, and I think a lot of people, is here you are. How many years have you been out now, Kev?
7.
Okay.
Well, I got recalled.
I know you did, yeah.
Yeah, but I've been out. I got released in January 2015.
Right. So here you are, 7 years later, you're still shouting from the rooftops, you're innocent. Why, mate? Why not just get on with your life?
I never bloody did it. That's why.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I know. I'm not having them, kid.
Yeah.
I'm not having them get away with it. Them bastards fitted me up, and they're still fitting people up, and I'm not having it. Look, if I did it, then put me away for it. I'll get on with it. Or find me guilty for something I have done. But you ain't taking me off the streets, away from my family, loved ones and friends, and banging me up and getting away with it, because I ain't having it. And I'm going to keep fighting until I get my bleeding day, because the book says it. That's why all the coppers are retiring now, because they want to keep their pensions and not get nicked and go to prison.
And where does the process go from here? Now, I read on one interview that you've got a podcast, a live podcast with a QC, Dominic D'Souza. When's that taking place? Because that's going to be very interesting. He's going to discuss the points of the trial with you, isn't he?
Yes. So we're yet to confirm a date, but that's only because I've got a company, a few companies, and 2 of the companies I've got, except one of them, I'm importing homes from Europe, and the last 3 months my hands are relatively clean today, but they're not filthy normally from in-ground dirt and paint. I'm getting a site ready for my show homes to come over, so that's taken me. I'm working 7 days a week, Saturdays and Sundays, so it's taken me away from the last few months to be able to get into my paperwork, get everything that is needed, and do a presentation pack. So yes, I will be doing a live podcast with Dominic D'Souza, and we'll be discussing the legalities of my conviction based on the paperwork that has been disclosed to us, what should have happened once that paperwork was disclosed to us, and we'll be discussing the deal that Roger Vincent did to have his convictions squashed. Alarming that you can do a deal with murder, but there's lots of people doing deals out there with murder. And if you go on the internet, you'll find it, Supergrass deals and such.
So you very much, I know you're working 7 days a week, but you've very much got like a little plan that is going to eventually, at the light at the end of the tunnel, will be basically that your conviction will be quashed.
Yes. Now, Dominic D'Souza is currently going through some paperwork we've issued him. So it is still taking place. He's a very busy barrister. But I want to go legal with this paperwork to see what people say on Twitter within the criminal justice system. And I'm sure they'll have a lot to say, because what I'm saying, Ken, is this. If me and you are nicked as co-defendants and you give evidence against me, but behind the scenes, I should have been made aware of that, okay? If it comes out you get acquitted by the judge's direction, in the middle of the trial, without any of us knowing it, the judge stops the trial, you're off. Then this paperwork comes to my attention. I never knew about it at trial. And what I'm saying is this. If you did it, if you writ that confidential chats, then my conviction's unsafe, because I should have been made aware of my accusers to be able to challenge them. Yeah? If you didn't do it, my conviction's unsafe anyway, because the police have then fitted me up. So either or either, if you have done it or you haven't done it, I need you to come forward and say either way, you have or you haven't, because either way, if you have or you haven't, my conviction's unsafe based on that. And Dominic D'Souza will be discussing the legalities of this, that he was talking to the authorities about other murders and telling them that I did it without me being told. And he also was giving evidence about the murder and telling them how it was done and how much was paid. I'm saying, if Roger Vincent knew so many details about this and he was charged with murder, then why wasn't he asked to explain to the jury how come he knows so much about the murder that he's charged with? Well, he wasn't. He was acquitted by the judge's direction. The judge knew that because Vincent went before the judge on his own at what's called an ex parte hearing. And those documents were disclosed to his legal team. I was in that court. because obviously I couldn't be there, could I? If he's discussing giving evidence against myself and others. So, yeah, there's a bit more to it than people realise until they start reading the book. And when they get into the book and it simplifies it and strips it down, people are just going, why is this man still a convicted murderer? His conviction should have been squashed.
I've got to say, you know, from a legal point of view, from a legal document point of view, your book is just the perfect document to place into anybody's hands to see that you were innocent of this crime. And I always remember when your book first came out a few years ago now, a couple of years, has it been out a couple of years?
November 2020.
Yeah. So I remember when it first come out and I downloaded a copy on my Kindle, and I understand you're going to get me a signed copy over fairly shortly.
Yes.
Good man.
Getting that copy there.
Good man, in hardback as well. I love it. I love it. And yeah, I remember reading it on the Kindle, and obviously it had changed a lot since the first draft that I actually saw, and changed for the better, and everything was laid out clearly. And that's down to you. That was nothing to do with a little bit gentle pushing and coaching from me. You sat in that cell day after day after day, and meticulously going through every line, every letter, every word, and it lays it out in such a concise, you know, what's the word, order that you've laid it out in. And I thought, right, all it takes is one person to read that book now, and that guy's conviction is quashed. And as I say, as many people as you can, get that book in their hands and let them read it and let them make their own mind up, because once they read it, there's only one thing they can make up, and that is that they know you're innocent. There's so many things, from the bent copper to the car to the confessions to the evidence that was withheld. I mean, it's not just one thing that they can throw doubt at your conviction. There's a dozen, you know.
Several murders in there, and so much more material, which is factual, like you say, Ken. That is what the readers have to get their head around. This isn't supposition or bad will from me, bitter taste and such. It's factual, which is why they've never put any stoppers on it. And I'm asking the readers this: what does the person have to do to have his conviction squashed when it's blatantly clear you have been fitted up by a corrupt police force? Not completely I must get that in, but by a corrupt team that fitted me up, because other police officers would have known of evidence that they have brought to the table that hasn't been disclosed to me, that should have been disclosed to me, that I subsequently found out years later, and it hadn't. And if it had have been disclosed to me, my conviction would have been deemed unsafe there and then, and the real perpetrators would have gone to prison, and they're now serving time for another murder, contract killing. Yeah.
Now those two guys are still inside, aren't they?
They're inside, but they're flying through the system at a great pace of knots. I wonder why.
Yeah. And again, on getting back to Spackman as well, you shouted from the rooftop for years that the guy was bent, and then he's convicted of stealing 160 grand from his own police force. And if I remember right in the book, Kevin, they went back and investigated quite a few of his cases, but not yours. Yeah. But not yours.
They found 22 cases, all fine. And then one of the cases with Khan and Bashir, they took the case back themselves, and it was subsequently squashed, their conviction that Spackman had an involvement in. Now, the police are never going to go, oh, yes, of course. It's the 22 cases we've looked at, and they're all unsafe because he's had a hand in it. But let's look at Spackman's role in my case. There's a computerized system called the Holmes database, and it contains every piece of information, from a phone call to an action or a research that the police have got to go off and do or act on something. It contains everything. Who was in control of that? Who signed it off? Spackman. When I received letters from the CPS, they were telling me to contact the officer in the case for disclosure, Spackman. When I wanted access to exhibits, it was contact the officer in the case, Spackman. So you see the picture here. Everything is Spackman. So I do not know how Hertfordshire Police can write to me and say that his part in my case was minimal, and it didn't have a bearing on it. When everything was filtered through him. And by Spackman's own admission, when he was interviewed by the CPS, that he said that he bent the rules a bit, he was a bit maverick, and he was brought into the case because of his relationship with Vincent and Smith, hence being their handler in other cases.
Which is what you said in the book all along, that obviously heavily involved with those two, you know.
Been going around Vincent's house on a number of occasions and invited in after the murder, after he'd been acquitted. He's been invited in by Vincent to go in. Oh, hello, Christopher, have a cup of tea. Want a bit of cake with that as well? It's absurd, isn't it? Just trying to get you sentenced for life. And Spackman was going around Vincent's house before he was acquitted, telling his mother he's definitely coming home, don't worry. Because Vincent only blurted it out on one of the buses going to court in front of the prison staff and the armed police in the vehicle. I shouldn't be sitting here now. They said I'll be out of it by now. Spackman's been round my house and said, I'm getting help, but you're going nowhere. And I looked at him and thought, are you fucking real? Excuse my French listeners, but I was shocked at the time. And it's all in the book.
Yeah. Now, listen, Kevin, we've got 2 minutes on this link. I know you've got an important call you've got to take in a few minutes' time.
Yeah.
We've got 2 minutes on this link. If you want to sort of do another interview, maybe it's next week or something. I don't feel as if we've covered everything. We've covered a lot, but it's entirely up to you. But just tell, for the purpose of this particular interview, we've got 1 minute 41 seconds, and then it cuts out.
Yeah.
Just tell us what you're doing for the future in regards to your business, your family. You're getting on with that side of life. You're quite happy in yourself.
So I've got a good business. I've got a haulage firm, and I've got a new type of home being delivered to England. I've got my offices, which I'm sitting in here now. I've got a documentary coming up with Charlie Bronson. He's going for trial, and he's got a jury to decide if he should be released. And I've been asked to comment on that and appear. I'm currently in discussions with Channel 5 about another documentary regarding possibly myself or doing something in collaboration with them. And I've got another one last night come through, which again is another documentary for Channel 4, that one. So there's 2 for Channel 4. Oh, and that's about Long Lartin prison, the violence and such in there.
Do you ever sleep, Kevin? Do you ever sleep?
Hence, look at me. I'm knackered this morning.
Yeah. As I say, we're gonna cut off any second now, but it's been great talking. It's been great seeing your face again, I must admit.
Can I just say quickly?
Yeah.
Ken, he's in the business. He knows the business. A great man to help you. He helped me. He took me to Andrew's publication and got my book put onto a CD-ROM for me. That's all from Ken. And he's a genuine man. That's what I'd like to say to all of your viewers. Very genuine.
I couldn't agree with you more, Kevin.
Nothing will be lost if you die.